Good afternoon. Welcome to Tuesday Tidbits with Jerry Hinkle and me, Trinity. We finished up last week our study in 2 Corinthians, and we're going to start the book of Galatians. This week, we're not going to really focus on a chapter. We're going to give you the context and the history behind this book so you will understand what's happening and the tone of everything, and you'll be able to grasp it. But we encourage you to go ahead and read chapter 1 because we are going to dive into it next week. And it's always good to just read ahead a little bit and try to understand it.
Yes.
So, Galatians, I've got, they call this the Jesus Bible. And so I like it because in each book, it brings out who Jesus is and his role in this book, in each book. So for Galatians, Jesus is our justification by faith. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, he's our okay. And before she goes any farther, I want to give some, I like to go back. I like to know where I'm talking about and kind of who we're talking about and get an idea or know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I got a book of maps here about the Bible times then and then now. You want to show them the front page? You want to show them a little bit? I think it's reflecting. I don't think.
Okay, there it is.
I got that.
Galatia, right here.
Modern day Turkey is what it is today.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you can get this book map off of christianbook.com. It's not very expensive, and you don't have to, but you got maps in your Bible too. But I like to go a little farther and get it in my head. Okay. Now, he's writing to the Galatian. That is an area. Okay. Sometimes we get mixed up thinking, well, it's just one little church, one location. But it's not. It was a providence. It's what we know as Turkey today. This is where Paul and Paul and Barnaby, I get them mixed up, and Mark. Remember, Mark went with them on missionary journeys because he was Barnabas's nephew or something. And then Mark got scared and he left and went home. And this caused a big division between Paul and Barnabas later on. Remember, and that's when he took up Silas and they went out. But this is one of the first missionary journeys that Paul done. He went through this location called Galatia, Galactica, however you want to call it. And he established several different churches in that area, that geographical location. Now, Galatia is mentioned in Acts chapter 13. It's mentioned in chapter 14. Then it's mentioned in chapter 16. Then it's not anything said until, this letter that Paul is writing to the whole area of Galatia. Now, there was a northern section of Galatia. Some people think he was just writing to that. Then there was a southern part of Galatia, which is common sense, but what we're talking about is two different tribes of people. The southern part was what they call the Gauls, Gaull or something like that. There was a different type of people, but it don't matter. He's writing to the whole area there. Yeah. Now,
both north and south.
Yeah, and there were several churches established in there. We go over here and we find all these. It names them over there in Acts. The churches that were established over there. That's not what the point I want to get at today. But it was a missionary journey by the two. Now, Trent's going to read some stuff here. We're going to kind of establish some foundations and things like that. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some dates. So Paul's missionary journeys, like Dad said, this spanned over from AD 47 to AD 57.
That's 10 years.
Okay, so 10 years. So, like Dad said, it wasn't just one church or one area. It was this whole Providence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole location.
So, in AD 48, that's when Paul writes to the Galatians. So he's in the middle of his missionary journeys. He writes them. Okay, so his missionary journeys went from AD 47 to AD 57. AD 48 is when he writes to the Galatians. And then it says Paul was martyred in Rome, AD 67 to 68.
Okay. We all know Paul lost his head. We all know that. And Paul was a tremendous, he was ready a long time before, but he said, hey, it's necessary that I stay, necessary to you, so I'm going to choose to stay. He could have left any time he had wanted to, but he chose to stay. Okay, let's jump back over here. You know, there was a 10-year period there in that. Okay, some of the areas or cities in which he established churches there in Galatia. This is the southern part of Galatia, or southern part of Turkey. Antioch, Iconium, Derbe, Lystra. Remember all of those? They talked about over there in Acts. That's the establishment of churches in these cities that Paul and Barnabas and them established. Now, they established these churches. Now, 47 to 57 AD was 10 years. He wrote this letter 1 year later. I think that's what that says there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He started his missionary journeys in AD 47. He writes to the Galatians in AD 48. So he 1 year after he started his missionary journeys, then he writes to them. But it wasn't, like Dad said, it wasn't just one church. It was the whole
group.
The whole group. He's addressing all of them.
Have you got anything else you want to bring out there?
As far as the dates, no, but
No.
I've got this. I can
Yeah,
read.
well, go ahead and read that, and then I'm going to jump back over here.
Okay. So it says, how can sinful people be made right with a holy God? This question is central to understanding Paul's letter to the churches of Galatia and also the entirety of the Bible. The churches in this region were established by Paul on either his first or second missionary journey. Since his departure, false teachers had perverted the gospel he proclaimed. These teachers led many to conclude erroneously that keeping the law, especially practicing circumcision, was essential for salvation. Paul did not mince words in countering this heresy, which Paul argued had fundamentally altered the message of the gospel. Salvation is found through faith in Jesus Christ alone. The law was used by God to reveal the extent of human sin and point forward to the coming of Jesus. It was, as it had always been, a response to the grace of God. Those who try to earn salvation by keeping the law will find themselves cursed by God because they cannot obey it perfectly. With fatherly affection, Paul writes to his little children in the faith and hope they will not abandon the gospel he proclaimed. Works-based salvation is not good news. It is crushing, burdensome, and condemning. The good news is that God pursued his people in love, knowing full well the extent of their sinfulness. Jesus lived a life of perfect conformity to the law and gives his righteous standing before God as a gift to his people. On the cross, Jesus became a curse on behalf of believers, so they would never face the condemnation sin deserves. These gifts, right standing before God and freedom from the wrath of God, are given apart from the works of the law. They are a gift of grace. God then indwells believers by means of his Holy Spirit, who empowers them to live the lives for which God created them. The Spirit produces in them what the law never could. Those who are saved by faith will feel this faith working in them to produce lives marked by the love of God and of one another. Jesus alone is the basis for the church's hope, both for their salvation and their ongoing sanctification.
All right, good. That's an overview of a lot of it. Now, what I want to do, we're going to jump back here, and throw out some things so you'll have a kind of an understanding of what is happening, what's going on here. Because this is a tremendous book, but there's a lot going on. You know, even Peter and a bunch of them get called on the carpet for some of the things they were doing, but we'll get into that later. As you read this book, it's not a very long book. You could read it and kind of get an idea, since Trinity gave you that oversight, and I'm going to give you just a little more here, okay? Let's go back to chapter 1. I'm going to read a couple verses here, and then we're going to talk, okay? Verse 1 says, Paul, an apostle, not of men, neither by men, but by Jesus himself and God the Father. Remember, he wasn't appointed by man. It was Jesus that appointed Paul as an apostle, okay? Who raised him from the dead, or God the Father who raised Jesus from the dead. And it says in verse 2, and all the brethren which are with me. Now, there was a group of men that went with Paul. One of them was Luke. Luke the physician, the one that wrote the book of Luke. He's the one that wrote a lot of these letters, and then Paul just signed off on them. He kept record of what was happening, okay? You understand what I'm saying? And and Paul signed off on them. Yes, this is what happened, of course. And it goes on. Unto the churches of Galatia. It says church is
Yeah, it's plural. Yep.
Several churches, okay? Not just one in particular, but several of them. And these churches were supposed to be faith churches, okay? Their faith in Jesus, not in the rituals that the Jewish,
not in the law.
Right. That's what I was looking for. Not in the law, but of faith.
Now remember, Paul started out, he was the Pharisee of all Pharisees. He was law-minded. He knew the law forwards and backwards. And he followed it, and he condemned anybody who did not follow it. And he killed Christians. So for him, this really disturbs him when the churches stray from everything Jesus taught him, which is the truth, and this, and they revert back to the law. That really, really disturbs him because, he was a Pharisee of all Pharisees. And once Jesus set his mind free, he was like, y'all are dumb. Don't be doing that.
And what she's saying is true, because that's what he says here in just a minute, okay? Now, it'd be easy to get in this chapter here and just tear loose, but I want to show you, he was very much disturbed, like Trinity said. I started to read the rest of some more verses, but if I do, that's going to throw us in the middle of this chapter, and I don't want to do that today. But in verse 6, Paul said, I marvel that you are so soon removed from Jesus that called you into the grace, or marvel that you are removed from God who called you into the grace of Jesus, you went into another gospel, okay?
Now, you have to realize, this is a letter, like when we done 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians, these are letters that he's writing to these churches to address them. And the tone of his letter in the beginning is sharp. He writes aggressively, attacking with claws, bared, and then moving defensively using careful logic. Even in the attack, though, Paul's panic, fear, and pain are clear. There is a growl of a mother bear rushing to protect her cubs, throwing her body between them and the danger. So Paul launches his words to protect the Galatians from any teacher who would tear them from Jesus, from the gospel they received by God's grace. So he's disturbed in this letter. He is really, really angry, and he doesn't mince words with them. Right. He basically just, it's tough love. Y'all pull your heads out of your butts. Right. Come on.
Now, this letter is not just today, okay?
Yeah.
It's over a period of time here.
Yeah.
So he started out right here, and this book is compiled of different letters. It's what it is, okay? Now, he says, I marvel, man. I'm stunned that you are moved away from another gospel, okay? Now, Trinity said a while ago that called them pretty much stupid.
Yep.
Well, he did.
Yep.
In chapter 3, verse 1, Paul said, "O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you that you should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus hath been evidently set forth, crucified among you." Now, look that word "foolish" up in the original text. In the Greek, this is translated from the original Greek, and you can go as deep as you want to. But actually, he said, "Oh, stupid Galatians, what is wrong with you?"
Mine is a little nicer. It says, "You irrational Galatians."
Same thing.
Basically, you dumb idiots. Come on now.
Yeah, the sophisticated people call it rational. Us country people call it, "You stupid, man.
Yeah.
Come on." Now, there's a difference between being stupid and ignorant. Ignorance is you don't know. If you don't know, that's different. But when you know,
and then you do the opposite of what you know, that's just stupid.
And we have to deal with what they dealt with back there. That's what makes the word so fantastic. They dealt with things, everything went great, big, man, they just boom, 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 let's go, 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 go. And then after a period of time, everybody fizzles out. The firecracker explodes and everybody fizzles out. Even over in the book of James. James was the pastor of the church at Jerusalem. Man, he laid it out, and it went great and great and great until he was martyred, and then the church in Jerusalem died. So, it's not the leader, it's the individuals. And that's what Paul's trying to get across here to these people. Man, you stupid, man. Come on. Follow the teaching. I can't be with you all the time. That's what he said. Now, he couldn't, because his appointment was reach out everywhere. Yeah. So he was trying to get them to go individuality, stir up yourself, keep yourself stirred up.
He was trying to raise up and for them to be leaders and not followers, because there were people out there that would follow all of the disciples and, all of the apostles and all that, and they would try to destroy the churches. You still had the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the law people, trying to dissuade and talk. So he's trying to get these people to rise up, be leaders, know what you know. Don't be followers. And every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes along and says, "Well, no, it's this way. No, it's this way." Know what you know.
Research it, find it out, be teachable, So there's some hard-headed people out there, you can't teach anything, but you got to be teachable. When something new is thrown out there, I don't just go burn everything up and this and that and say, "Well, that ain't true. I will kick it around and find out what the word says about it. And if it don't set well with me, then, I'll just go on. But I know what I know. I am rooted. I am grounded in it, but I am teachable. Those things that I preached on and taught on back in my 20s when I first started out, that totally wrong. And I had to back up and apologize for that. I taught a lot on tithing, and that's the thing they like to teach on a lot and throw people in bondage. But when I found out the truth, I went back and I apologized to people, and all the books that we bought for these people, I told them, throw them away. It is not true. So, we have to be teachable, but we don't want to throw the baby out with the water either, bath water, so to speak, okay? So, that is basically the overview of the book of Galatians, and I'm excited to get in it because there's a lot of things in there, man. A lot of things in this book that'll set you free or help you think, or, help. Our goal is challenging you to think, okay? And reach out and get a hold of God and just let God be God. Okay?
Remember, Jesus is our justification by faith in this book. So
by faith, yes. So, okay. God's blessings are all over you. Happy New Year. It's a good year.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it? Okay. God's blessings are all over you.
We'll see you next week.